taking our shot. Bring what you got. We're going all the way to the top. We will hear the sound of 1 million people screaming our names when we're backstage. We'll play loud, surfing the crowd. Everybody's jumping around. Yeah, that's the place where I wanna be. Going on stage, headline on a Saturday night. Oh, 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 Saturday night.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. New Horizon Lawn Care here, and today's video is a little different. So today we are going to be talking about the winter weather outlook from our good friends from WTWO and Kevin Orpurt, who used to be a meteorologist at, he's still a meteorologist, but he used to be on TV at WTHI. He did his winter weather outlook. So we're going to have Jesse Walker's first. He's going to talk a little bit about what he does to what he looks at when he tries to do his winter weather outlook, different parts, you know, solar flares and water temperatures and snowpack and all that. So that'll be the first part of it. Then he actually gets into his winter weather outlook, which is forecasted for Indiana, kind of Illinois area, at least central Illinois, central Indiana, Terre Haute kind of area. Kevin Orpurt is the same. Now, both of these guys have pretty much kind of the same thoughts that I had when I made my winter weather outlook. And actually, here is my winter weather outlook for December. I think I'm going to nail, hopefully, this on the first. Definitely think it's going to be cold and light snow. See, guys, it's crazy. I made this back in October, not knowing what December was going to do. And then a little warm up with some rain. That may be a little off. It might be cold. We'll see if I miss this. We'll have to see. Cold and snow, and then more snow. I think these two are going to be almost spot on. The end of the month, we'll have to see. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But it's crazy that I actually done this, and it's actually looking like it may actually come true. So we'll see how December goes. I'll put a new one up here for January when January rolls around, and we'll see what happens there. But enough with me. You guys came here to watch the winter weather outlooks from Jesse Walker and Kevin Orpurt. So enjoy.
It's time for my annual winter outlook 2025-2026. A lot of time has gone into this, looking at a lot of things, and I want to show you some of those things before we actually get into the winter outlook. These are just some of the things I look at. A lot of these just have these letters, and we'll go over some of these as we talk about the things that are impacted for our weather. La Nina, I'm going to explain that one a little bit. This QBO, it has to do with the upper level winds up in the stratosphere, and right now it is negative in the east direction. When that happens, we tend to see some colder weather in this part of the country in the winter. And this thing called the PDO, which I'll explain, it has to do with the Pacific Ocean. It's very negative, about as negative as we have ever seen, and that also tends to lead sometimes to some colder weather in this part of the country in the winter. So right here, this is the first thing we're going to talk about. This is called La Nina. When you have cooler than normal sea surface temperatures near the equator here in the Pacific, that's called La Nina. But what causes it, and how can it impact our weather? Well, the trade winds down here, what happens is these trade winds are blowing in this direction back to the west. It causes some of that cooler water underneath to upwell, we call it, or come up to the surface. And this can actually impact the way the jet stream pattern works. So for us in a La Nina winter, we tend to have the flow from the north. We tend to see a bit colder. We have these clipper systems, and many times it can be wetter than normal. So that's how a La Nina can impact our weather. In addition to La Nina, I also look out here in the Indian Ocean. Where is it warmer? Where is it colder? I talked about the PDO. Well, that is up here. We have cooler here, and warm in between. Again, many times when we see a setup like that, we tend to see a bit of a colder pattern here in the eastern part of the country. And then we also look in the Atlantic and in the Gulf of Mexico to see what the temperatures look like there. I also look to the north to see where the snow cover is and how thick it is. When air masses come down over this pack of snow cover and move south, if we have a lot of snowpack up there, the air masses don't get modified too much and they're pretty cold. Right now we have a pretty good snowpack, although not as much as we have had in the past. I look at a lot of things and I come up with what I call my analog years. Years I think are similar. I have 11 of them this year. The ones highlighted in red are my top analog years. Last year, and if you remember, we did have one big snowstorm in early January. 17, 18, 13, 14 was a tough winter. A lot of snow, a lot of cold, And this one also is one of my top analogs. And by the way, December of 2000, coldest December ever on record. 3 of the 4 of my highlighted ones, by the way, were colder than normal. So here's the outlook then for this winter. I think a quick start to winter, by that I'm talking about, we're going to jump right into this in the early part of December. I think the coldest winter we've seen here in about a decade, since 1415, and I think the most snow we've seen here since 1415. So if you're a winter lover, I think this is probably going to be the best winter for you that we've seen in a decade with the temperatures and with the snowfall. I'm going to use this phrase, I think, a lot in December. I've never used this before in a winter outlook, but I think it's going to be a December to remember. I think we're going to have some very active weather in December. Could be anything from severe thunderstorms to ice or snowstorms. So I think December going to pack a punch here in the Wabash Valley. The next measurable snow, because we already got one on November 10, will fall quickly. Easily by the 10th of December, I think we'll have the next measurable snow. Now, I don't think there's going to be a white Christmas because I think the pattern may relax right around Christmas to where it warms some. But I can tell you if I'm going to miss one, this one I could easily miss this year because December is going to be active. So I'm saying no white Christmas, but it wouldn't shock me I could miss that one. A lot of windy days. These clippers come in. We'll have a lot of wind again this winter and big temperature swings. I think at least 65 degrees from the coldest to the warmest temperature. So we're going to see a variation with these temperatures. And when that happens, when I looked at the analog years, I think we'll see at least one or maybe a couple record or near record highs. So when it warms, it could be a substantial warm up, which could also lead to possibly some severe weather. When it gets cold, though, I'm thinking 2 to 3 days will go below zero at least. 4 is average, so we will see some sub-zero temperatures. With the temperature swings, a couple of severe weather events will be possible. One of those very easily could be in the month of December with that wild pattern that we're looking at. This one, like last year, I think we could see at least one snow of 4.5 inches or greater. Most of those analog years had a sizable snowstorm, so I think we could get a decent, at least one, snowstorm out of this pattern. The coldest will be in the first half of the winter. I think once we hit mid to late January, we'll kind of come out and the pattern will actually relax a little bit. This was interesting. Many of my analogs showed ice events. So I think ice is going to be likely, possibly even an ice storm. That's something we got to keep an eye on because many of those past years I looked at did have an ice issue. December, I think, will be the coldest month of the 3, December, January, and February. But I still think there's going to be some cold left over in March. And I think there's going to be some snow in March. So I don't think it'll be a quick start to spring this year. So here we go. Forecast temperatures. I'm forecasting 30.8, 32.3 is normal, so colder than normal, but not by a whole lot. Precipitation. This is melted snow and rain. Normal about 8.5, forecasting 7.8, and of course what everybody wants to know about, snowfall. I'm forecasting 16 inches. Normal is 14.6. If we see 16, it would be the most snow we've had here in a winter since 2014. Now, if you want to check this out online, we have a ton of information for you there. MyWabashValley.com, all of the charts, the graphs, the analog years, all of that stuff. You can check that out there as well. We'll see how we do as we head for another winter here in the Wabash Valley.
Kevin's Winter Forecast is sponsored by St. Mary of the Woods College and Big O Tires Z-Tech Audio Plus.
If you've been looking for an old-fashioned winter, the winter like we used to have, you might be in luck. I've been watching nature signs, and here's what I believe could be happening this winter. Winter starts strong in December. Temperatures will be below average, but precipitation will be above average. With the first week delivering a chance of accumulating snow, rain, and cold. The week of the 7th will be sunny, but it'll continue to be cold. From the 14th through the 20th, look for more clouds, breezy, and a little bit of a warm-up. Christmas week could bring unsettled conditions with cold wind and a chance of accumulating snow. Yes, I'm predicting a white Christmas. December will end with cold temps and flurries. Now, January will continue to be cold with below average temperatures and precipitation above average. The month starts off cold with another chance of snow, but by the second week, the sun returns along with some warmer air. The week of the 18th brings the return of precipitation, this time in the form of snow in the north, but a wintry mix in the south. The last week of January looks sunny and a little bit warmer. Now, coming up, I'll take a look at the February forecast, and I'll tell you why I believe where you live in the Wabash Valley could make a big difference. Earlier, I told you how I expected December and January to shape up. So now, let's take a look at February. I'm expecting the temperatures to be above average, with precipitation above average as well. So, the month starts off windy and cold and cloudy with a chance of snow and rain. Our local groundhog will not see his shadow. The second week turns sunny and warmer with hints of an early spring. Rain and possible thunderstorms enter the area during the 15th to the 21st, and the month ends sunny and a little bit cooler. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this winter, because where you live could have a lot to do with the kind of weather you get. Those of you living in Vincennes and Washington, for example, might have a very different winter than those of you in Paris, Clinton, or Rockville. If this turns out to be the case, the north part of the Wabash Valley could get more snow, while the south gets more rain. And right through the middle, rain, snow, and a wintry mix. Looks like the old I-70 corridor could once again have an effect on our winter weather. Well, there's my winter forecast for this year based on nature's signs. I've spent a lot of time looking at all the signs, and I really have a fair amount of confidence in how this winter is going to shape up. But I do it mostly for fun, so don't take it too seriously.
All right, let's get to it. The winter weather outlook. Now, I look at a lot of different things when putting together this forecast. Actually, one of the things is looking at what some other forecasters are saying, like the tried and true Old Farmer's Almanac. It's been around for over 200 years. They're saying mild and dry. But you know, there's another almanac. It's just known as the Farmer's Almanac. Well, they're saying very cold and snowy. That's two totally opposite forecasts, right? How about we take a glance at what NOAA is saying? They put out their winter weather outlook. For our area here, basically it's called equal chances. It means, well, it could go either way. It could be cool, it could be warm. But this one's interesting. Their precipitation forecast for our area is saying above normal. So there are a lot of different aspects to a forecast that you look at. But one thing that everybody can agree on is the El Nino and La Nina patterns, okay? They come and they go, and sometimes we get what's called a neutral pattern, which is neither. So what is above and below? Well, we're talking about the sea surface temperatures right at the equator, okay, right here. And this year, it looks like it's going to be cooler than normal, but just barely. And that's what we're seeing right here. So that's a La Nina pattern. But notice this blue bar getting shorter as we go later into winter and eventually transitioning to what's known as a neutral pattern, which we'll talk more about here in a second. But we are going to have what looks to be a La Nina. So what is that? Well, normally trade winds which blow east to west push this warm surface water towards Asia. But in certain years, like this year, the trade winds are so much stronger than usual, they're causing cooler water to occur there at the surface in the eastern Pacific. And that is what a La Nina is, which then in turn brings us kind of a jet stream pattern like this, dry and warm to the south, a little bit more active weather across the Great Lakes, and sometimes wetter than normal. So we bounce back and forth. This La Nina pattern goes back and forth. It's an El Nino one year, it's a La Nina another, and this year, as I mentioned, looks like it's a weak La Nina. And we can look at the different years that we've had that, the weak and the moderate and the strong. So we're going to be mainly kind of focusing on some of these years here. And the reason we know it's going to be weak, we're just barely below, okay? We do this every year looking at the temperatures, and then we like to look at some similar years that maybe we had something going on, like 2013. That's one right there. Or say 2017, 2018. So then we go back, look at some of the numbers. What do we have for snow? Well, 2017, 18, 19. But how about that number right there? You snow lovers are going, whoa, 43 inches. Yeah, that happened in 2013, 2014. So a weak La Nina going to a neutral pattern is what we're looking at. So what does that mean for us? Well, here's what I'm forecasting. I think temperatures are going to be slightly below what is considered normal for this season, okay? We're going to have a slow ramp up to winter. I don't think we're going to jump right into it. A little bit more milder early on, and then we crank into, I think, some really cold times into January and February. And I think rainfall's above normal. Better opportunities to get moisture here and more active pattern. We're going to get a lot of these little clipper systems that come in. So I'm saying just above normal for snowfall. So what is normal? Well, about 23 inches is what we typically get. And I'm going with about 23 to 27 inches of snow. That's a lot. We've not had numbers like that in a while, but this could be an interesting season. And it may come in several different rounds. You may get a lot of 2 and 3 inch snows as opposed to maybe a big 8, 9 inch, 10 inch snow. So what about White Christmas? Well, for you White Christmas lovers, we're going to up the ante this year. I'm going to give you a 40%, a maybe, for getting some white stuff on Christmas mornings. That's not bad, right? Here's a little bit of a recap. Weak La Nina pattern going to neutral. Temperatures slightly below normal. I think we're going to see more rain and snow events, so above average there. Winter, as I mentioned, starts out a little slower, but ramps up. White Christmas opportunity definitely in place, and a lot of those little clipper-like systems. Time will only tell, but it does look like maybe a little bit more of a winter than what we've had in some of the years past.